again, welcome back to the Fire Burns Within channel. Time for a very big anniversary review. Metallica's self-titled album is 30 years old on August 12th. It was released back in 1991. It's 30 years old. Wow, what a seminal album. What an album indeed. This was one of my first forays into heavy metal, if you like, as a full album. I'd always listened to some metal, but never really been a fan or listened to full albums, as a full-time heavy metal listener. But this was one of the ones that got me started off on, full-time heavy metal fandom, if you will. So I listened to it again for the purposes of this anniversary review. I loaded it up in full, top to bottom. Listen again. I haven't done that for I don't know how long. I mean, I absolutely played the album to death from when it was released back in 91. I probably heard it a little while after release, maybe towards the end of, say, 91 and early 92. But I was playing this so much. I mean, I was overplaying this. I was familiar with every inch of this record. But I haven't played it in full for, God knows, 20 years, maybe more. Not in full. I've heard, obviously, odd tracks. I've heard tracks live, but not as a full album. So I listened to it again as a full album. I'm going to review every track quickly and then give a final review and a final rating on its 30th anniversary. So the album opens with Enter Sandman. Everyone knows this song, obviously. Everyone knows every song on this, obviously. But this one is, of course, the most famous songs on the album. Okay, so I listened again. These were my thoughts as I was listening. Sounds a bit pedestrian on record. It sounds a little bit slowish. Far prefer it live. Chorus is still, iconic. 7 out of 10 for this track. Track 2 is Sad But True. It's got a very slow, lumbering, heavy riff. I think I like this one less than I used to. It's still good though. It's got a heavy, lumbering vibe. 7.5 out of 10 for Sad But True. Track 3 is Holier Than Thou. This one's a more thrashy track. It's good to hear that opening riff again. Song is slightly underrated for me. I really loved hearing this one again. So 8.5 out of 10. Track 4 is The Unforgiven. I've always loved The Unforgiven. Still like it now. I've heard it quite a lot of times in between. I mean, I've heard it, not too long ago actually. This year sometime I think I heard it. But I heard it again on this listen. Just love this tune. I like the vibe. It's got a great solo from Kirk Hammett. Sung brilliantly by Hetfield. His crooning voice is quite good. So I really like The Unforgiven. 9 out of 10. Track 5 is Wherever I May Roam. Haven't heard it in an age. Always been quite a fan of this heavy and brooding track. It's got good pacing, easy to enjoy. It's got a good groove. Hetfield's vocals are very good. One of my faves on the album, has to be said. 9 out of 10. Track 6 is Don't Tread on Me. Always been one of my least favourite tracks. After 30 years I was hoping maybe I will hear something new in it, but it was okay, but it's plodding. It's sort of, the plodding nature is a slight drawback for me, and it's just not that great a song. I don't get a great feel for Don't Tread on Me. 6 out of 10. Track 7 is Through the Never. Again, this is a little bit of an underrated track. It's heavy. It's as close to thrash, full-on thrash, as this album is gonna get. Pounds along nicely. One of the heaviest moments of the album for sure. 8.5 out of 10. Track 8 is Nothing Else Matters, most famous ballad from the album. I still enjoyed this on this listen. I think it's a cool song, but I think it sounds better live, with the atmosphere that they can build on this song. But it was okay. It was a solid song. Still a good song. 8 out of 10. Track 9 is of Wolf and Man. Always been a fan of this rumbling heavy tune and the cool vocal melodies. It sounded quite cool. A little bit dated sounding now. I don't know. It sounded okay. 7.5 out of 10. Track 10 is The God That Failed. Another slow and brooding heavy riff. I actually, loved this track from a long time back when I first heard. This was one of my favorites. And I enjoyed hearing it again, as I hadn't heard it for quite a while. It's really heavy. It's got some great vocal melodies. The solo is really good. 8.5 out of 10. Track 11 is My Friend of Misery. This is another slow and brooding heavy track. This sounded slightly better than what I remembered of it, actually. Some nice moody vocals, some good guitar melodies. I quite enjoyed My Friend of Misery. 8 out of 10. Track 12 is The Struggle Within. Finally they speed it up a touch, not going full thrash, but always been a fan of this track, and it was good to hear it again. I think it's quite an underrated track, The Struggle Within. 8.5 out of 10. So I listened to the whole album again. It was a good exercise. It was a fun little exercise. Final thoughts on this album. Metallica's most famous sellout album. It still sounds good by today's standards. The production is a little bit, I don't know, it's clean, crisp, heavy, but it's a little bit awkward sounding by today's sound. I don't know, there's something different about it. Hetfield's vocals are superb on this. I mean, 30 years hasn't been kind on his voice. His voice is much weaker nowadays. Lars's drumming sounds solid. I think it's the production that the drumming production helps Lars on this album, after having quite bad sound on sort of And Justice for All, or sort of like a clicky sound on previous albums. But the drum sound on this album, it still sounds good for today. The bass, I know people say there's a good amount of bass on this, but I can't hear bass too much. It's sort of the very low frequencies. So it sounds sort of very in tune with the guitars. The bass isn't playing anything interesting, so not too much to comment on the bass. The problem with this album is the plodding nature. Most songs are slow, plodding, heavy, grooving, a little bit bloated. As I've said many times, I don't gravitate heavily towards slow music, but this is sort of like slow, lumbering, heavy, with the odd bit of energetic riffing, which always helps. In my early days, I would have given this album easily a 9 out of 10, when I first started listening to heavy metal. But after 30 years, I can see that it's starting to show a little bit of wear and tear at the sides. I can no longer judge it that high. And my average rating for this is 7.9 out of 10, so just under 8 out of 10, which I think is pretty high, because I think the average rating on Metal Archives is 72%. So my rating is slightly higher than the average, but a lot of people were upset with this album because Metallica abandoned thrash and went for sort of like a heavy hard rock, heavy slow metal sound. But I mean, it was a move into commerciality, but it wasn't that big a sellout to me. Well, at the time it wasn't anyway. Now I can see that it was a sellout, but I think it was a move that they had to do, right? I mean, they'd already done the thrash thing. It's time to try a slightly different route, and they did a really good job of it. But Obviously, after this, they went on to do the loads and reloads, and then that's a step too far, you know. But they've come back since then. But 30 years has passed since the Black Album. It's a legendary album. Love it or hate it, you can't deny it. It's a big moment in heavy metal history. Okay, that was my 30-year anniversary for the Black Album. Write in the comments what you think.